What if the best day of your life turned into your worst nightmare? All because of one small decision, one single click. Linda Wilson, 52, had faced more heartbreak than most. Years of failed relationships and loneliness made her wonder if she would ever find real love. Then, during a vacation in Colombia, she met a man who seemed perfect, charming, caring, and full of promises. Their love grew fast. Linda believed she had finally found her happy ending. When he proposed, she said yes without hesitation. After waiting so long for love, she was finally walking down the aisle, wearing the white dress, ready to start her new life. But just 24 hours after the wedding, everything fell apart. Linda's life ended in a shocking and violent way, and the man she had trusted with her heart was at the center of it all. It all started with a Facebook post. A simple photo, meant to share her joy, instead uncovered a web of lies that led to a horrifying truth. How did the man she married turn into her killer within a day? Could this tragedy have been prevented? As we reveal the chilling details of Linda's story, we want to hear from you. Could she have seen the warning signs? What would you have done in her place? Share your thoughts in the comments as we uncover the truth behind a marriage built on deception and a single post that changed everything. Linda had always believed in second chances. Even after so much heartbreak, she held on to hope. At 52, she had experienced more than her share of love gone wrong. Some relationships made her question her choices. Others made her wonder if true love even existed. But she never gave up. Instead of letting her past define her, she focused on the small joys in life: good friends, simple pleasures, and a positive outlook. Linda wasn't rich or famous, but her life had meaning. As a devoted schoolteacher, she spent her days helping young minds grow, offering her students the encouragement she wished she had received herself. Outside of work, Linda was the friend everyone could count on. She always had a kind word, a warm smile, and was ready to listen. For years, she watched her closest friends find love, get married, and start families. She attended their weddings with a happy heart, but deep inside, she wondered if she would ever get her turn to walk down the aisle. Even with the loneliness, Linda still believed love would find her. Her social media showed a woman full of life and hope, pictures of her solo travels, sunsets, and quotes about faith and perseverance. To her friends, Linda was strong and independent, but behind the happy posts, she longed for a partner, someone to share her life with. Her best friend Sarah knew this better than anyone. They had been inseparable for years, more like sisters than friends. Sarah knew all of Linda's secrets, her dreams, her heartaches. She had always been there to celebrate Linda's joys and comfort her in tough times. So when Linda came back from her vacation in Colombia, with exciting news, she had met someone special, Sarah was happy for her. At first. As Linda described her whirlwind romance, Sarah's happiness turned into concern. The man Linda met, James, sounded too perfect. Linda was happier than she had been in years, giddy with excitement. James was charming, attentive, and made her feel special. He listened, made her laugh, and treated her like she was the most important person in the world. To Linda, he was everything she had ever wanted. But to Sarah, something felt off. From the start, Sarah had a bad feeling. James had no online presence, no Facebook, no Instagram, nothing to trace his past. He avoided questions about his life, giving vague answers. And then there was the age difference. Linda was 52, and James looked like he was in his late 30s or early 40s. It wasn't just the age gap, it was how secretive he seemed. But Linda didn't care. She brushed off Sarah's questions, saying James was just a private person. She insisted she had never felt this alive, this loved. Sarah didn't want to ruin her friend's happiness, so she kept quiet. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something about James wasn't right. So, in secret, she started digging, looking for anything that would either put her mind at ease or prove her worst fears were true. Sarah searched everywhere: social media, public records, even Google, but found nothing. James seemed to have no past, no online footprint, no trace of his life before meeting Linda. This only made Sarah more uneasy, but she knew she couldn't just tell Linda. Her friend was deeply in love, and any doubts might push them apart. So Sarah stayed silent, but kept a close eye on James whenever she could. As their relationship got more serious, her concern turned into quiet watchfulness. Then James proposed. Linda called Sarah immediately, her voice full of joy. She described how James had planned every detail, how romantic it was, how perfect. Sarah congratulated her, but deep inside, her worry grew. The weeks before the wedding were a blur of excitement and planning. Linda was glowing with happiness, and Sarah did her best to be supportive. But her doubts never faded. One moment stood out. Linda casually mentioned that James had asked her not to post about their relationship online. He wanted to keep their love private. To Linda, it was sweet, a sign that he wanted to cherish their relationship without outside interference. But to Sarah, it was a red flag. Something felt wrong. She gently tried to warn Linda, suggesting she be careful, but Linda was too caught up in the excitement. She trusted James completely. Sarah didn't want to ruin her happiness, so she kept her thoughts to herself. She hoped time would reveal the truth, but time was running out. While Linda dreamed of love and a bright future, Sarah feared that James was not who he seemed. The wedding day arrived. It was everything Linda had ever wanted: simple, beautiful, full of love, a small chapel, soft flowers, surrounded by close friends and family. Everyone there had seen Linda's struggles and now shared in her joy. She walked down the aisle in a classic white gown, her face glowing with happiness. James stood at the altar, looking perfect, just as he always had. To Linda, this was her dream come true. During the vows, she laughed softly, tears in her eyes as she promised to love James forever. He, too, spoke with warmth and confidence. When the officiant announced them husband and wife, the room filled with applause. Linda's heart swelled as she looked at the smiling faces of her loved ones. But beneath the happiness, there was something else. James had always asked her not to post about their relationship. It had seemed like a small thing at first. He just liked privacy, right? But as time passed, his insistence became stronger. And just before the wedding, he reminded her again. "I'd prefer if we kept this between us and the people here," James said. "I don't want our personal lives out there for everyone to see." Linda, caught up in the excitement, nodded. She saw no reason to question him. To her, it was just a simple boundary, nothing more. But Sarah wasn't convinced. She had watched their relationship unfold with quiet suspicion. Something about James felt off. His strong stance against social media seemed strange, almost like he was hiding something. Wanting privacy was one thing, but going to such lengths to stay invisible? That raised questions Sarah couldn't ignore. Still, she knew Linda was in love. She didn't push too hard. But on the morning of the wedding, as they got ready together, Sarah brought it up one last time. "Are you sure about not sharing anything?" she asked gently. "This is your day, Linda. You should do what makes you happy." Linda hesitated. "James just doesn't like strangers knowing our business," she said. "And honestly, I get it. I want to respect his feelings." But Sarah could tell Linda wanted to share her happiness. Linda had always celebrated other people's big moments. Keeping this one to herself didn't feel right. Sarah let it go, but her words lingered in Linda's mind. That night, at the reception, Linda was swept up in the magic. The candlelit tables, heartfelt toasts, laughter filling the air. It was everything she had ever dreamed of. As she danced with James under the twinkling lights, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. But a thought nagged at her. So many people she loved weren't there to witness this moment. Later, when the night quieted down, Linda sat alone, scrolling through the photos from earlier. One stood out, a beautiful shot of her and James at the altar, their faces full of joy. She felt an urge to share it. It wasn't about going against James. It was about celebrating, about letting the people who had supported her through everything see her happiness. With trembling fingers, she typed a simple caption: "Just married. feeling so grateful for this new chapter. For a moment, she hesitated. James's voice echoed in her mind. Then she thought of Sarah's words, "This is your day." Taking a deep breath, she hit post. At first it felt like a small victory. The notifications rolled in. Likes, comments, messages filled with love and congratulations. Linda smiled, warmth spreading through her. She had missed this feeling, the connection, the shared joy. But what she didn't know was that one simple post would set off a chain of events she could never have imagined. It had been a long, emotional day. The wedding was everything Linda had hoped for. Intimate, joyous, full of love. As she and James returned to their hotel suite, she was still basking in the afterglow. She had no idea what was coming. James stepped onto the balcony, letting the cool night air hit his face. Linda sat on the bed, scrolling through the comments on her post. Each message filled her with more joy. People were celebrating with her, sharing in her happiness. She didn't notice the shift in the air when James came back inside. He glanced at her screen, then he froze. For a moment, everything was still. There it was. The photo, the caption, his face, visible for the world to see, and the comments. They were already piling up. James had spent years avoiding a trace of his past. Now, in an instant, it was undone. His voice was low, but sharp. "What did you do?" Linda looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" James pointed at the screen. "You posted the picture," he said, his voice growing colder. "I told you not to post anything. Why would you do that?" Linda's heart pounded. She had never seen him like this before. "I just wanted to share our happiness," she said, her voice unsteady. "It's just a photo, James. It's nothing to get upset about." But to James, it wasn't just a photo. It was a problem. The emergency call was made within minutes of Linda's fall. Hotel staff and guests, drawn by the sickening thud and the commotion outside, rushed to the scene. Linda's body lay motionless on the stone pathway beneath the balcony, her delicate wedding dress now stained with blood. The once festive atmosphere of the resort had turned cold, silence giving way to murmurs of horror and disbelief. A crimson pool formed beneath her head, stark against the pale stone. The sight was enough to send one guest stumbling backward, hands clamped over her mouth. Another, a young man who had been passing through the courtyard, fumbled for his phone, dialing emergency services with trembling fingers. Nearby, voices overlapped in a frantic blur. "Oh my God, did she fall? Someone get help! Is she breathing?" But there was no response from Linda. Witnesses would later recount hearing raised voices from the couple's suite moments before the fall. A woman staying in the adjacent room told investigators she had been lying in bed when she heard the argument. "They were fighting," she said. "I couldn't hear every word, but she was upset. Then suddenly there was a loud crash, and everything went silent." Another couple, walking toward their room, described hearing a woman's voice pleading, followed by a sharp, panicked yell. By the time they turned toward the source of the sound, it was too late. They had seen Linda's body hit the ground. The police arrived swiftly, their flashing lights casting an eerie blue hue over the pristine resort grounds. Officers moved quickly, securing the scene while paramedics pushed through the gathering crowd. But as one of them knelt beside Linda and checked for vital signs, his solemn expression told the truth before he even spoke. She was gone. Upstairs, in the dimly lit hotel suite, James sat slumped in a chair, his hands tangled in his hair. His chest heaved as he muttered to himself, rocking slightly, his mind scrambling for an explanation. "It was an accident," he whispered. "I didn't mean to. She wasn't supposed to." But no amount of justification would undo what had happened. The room bore clear signs of struggle. A lamp lay shattered on the floor, furniture had been knocked askew, and Linda's phone rested near the balcony doors, its screen spiderwebbed with cracks. The last thing she had touched before, everything spiraled out of control. When officers entered, James barely reacted. He looked up, his face pale, his expression somewhere between disbelief and dread. "Sir, stand up," one of them ordered. James didn't move at first. Then slowly, as if awakening from a nightmare, he rose to his feet, hands trembling at his sides. "You need to come with us." He opened his mouth, but no words came. There was nothing he could say that would erase the fact that Linda was dead. Nothing that could take back what had happened on this night, on what should have been the happiest day of their lives. As the cold metal of the handcuffs closed around his wrists, James finally spoke. "You don't understand," he said, his voice hollow. "She wouldn't listen. I told her not to." But it didn't matter, because now the world would finally start asking the questions James had spent his entire life trying to avoid, and this time there was nowhere left to run. Detectives seized James's phone, hoping it would provide critical insights into the moments leading up to Linda's tragic fall. Meanwhile, forensic experts confirmed what had already seemed inevitable. The impact had been fatal. Linda's family, shattered by the news, demanded answers. How had a day meant to celebrate love ended in such devastation? Who was this man their daughter had trusted with her heart? Their grief soon turned to shock as investigators uncovered a truth far darker than they had imagined, starting with James's real identity. James was a lie. His real name was Alan Grant, a seasoned con artist with a long history of deception and manipulation. Alan wasn't just any scammer. He was a professional, preying on wealthy, vulnerable women. He moved from resort to resort, targeting those who appeared to be traveling alone. His approach was calculated, introducing himself as a successful businessman, exuding charm and attentiveness. To his victims, he was everything they had ever dreamed of. But once he earned their trust, he struck. Under the guise of love and partnership, Alan slowly gained access to their finances. Some women lost their entire savings before he vanished without a trace. He left no digital footprint, no social media, no identifiable records. His aliases changed constantly, ensuring he remained a ghost, untraceable. But this time, Alan had made a mistake. Linda's Facebook post, just a simple picture of the two of them, smiling, with his name attached, was the thread that unraveled his entire scheme. For the first time, his face was publicly linked to an identity. That post became the key detectives needed. As the case gained attention, calls began pouring in from women who recognized Alan's face. Some had fallen victim to his schemes, others had narrowly escaped. Their stories painted a horrifying picture of a man who thrived on deception. One woman described meeting him at a luxury resort in Cancun. "He was perfect," she said, her voice shaking. "Charming, attentive, everything I thought I wanted." But the moment she started asking questions about his past, the illusion shattered. He asked for money, first for a business deal, then for personal expenses. Before she realized what was happening, he had drained her accounts and disappeared. Another woman, still grappling with the financial and emotional scars, explained how Alan manipulated her into handing over control of her finances. "He convinced me we were building a future together," she said, "but the second I got suspicious, he cut me off completely." Financial records confirmed their accounts. Over the years, Alan had stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars, leaving devastation in his wake. The Facebook post had changed everything. It exposed his network of fraud and deceit, allowing detectives to track his movements, identify resorts he frequented, and connect him to numerous victims. For Linda's family, the truth was unbearable. The man they had welcomed into their lives, the man who had promised to love and protect Linda, had been living a lie from the very beginning. Her best friend Sarah was especially shaken. "I knew something felt off," she admitted, "but I never imagined this." As the investigation deepened, Alan's carefully constructed life unraveled. Detectives uncovered forged documents, multiple aliases, and sham business ventures used to sustain his schemes. The evidence was overwhelming. He was charged with murder, alongside a slew of fraud-related crimes. For the first time in his life, Alan Grant couldn't run. As he sat in his cell, the weight of his actions closing in, the man who had spent years living on lies now faced the inescapable truth. Justice was coming. His trial became a media sensation, drawing attention not just for its shocking revelations, but for the sheer scale of his deception. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, Linda's grieving family, and even some of Alan's past victims, all watching as the prosecution laid out his web of lies. They detailed the events of the wedding day, the argument in the hotel room, the final moments before Linda fell. Witnesses recounted the screams, the sickening thud, the horror that followed. But the most damning piece of evidence was the very thing that had sealed Alan's fate: the Facebook post. The prosecution argued that it was the trigger that sent him spiraling. For years, Alan had carefully controlled his existence, ensuring no trace of his real identity could be linked to his crimes. But with a single post, Linda had unknowingly shattered that control. And Alan had been willing to do anything to keep his secrets buried. But now the truth was out, and this time he had nowhere left to hide. Alan Grant had spent years perfecting his deception, weaving a life built on charm, lies, and manipulation. He had left a trail of broken hearts and financial ruin, always managing to disappear before the truth could catch up to him. But in the end, it wasn't a complex investigation or high-tech forensic work that brought him down. It was a simple social media post. Linda had unknowingly exposed the man she loved for who he truly was, and it cost her everything. Her family, left with more questions than answers, would never get to see the future she had envisioned. The wedding that was supposed to mark the beginning of a beautiful new chapter became a tragic ending. Alan's arrest and trial finally gave his victims the closure they had long been denied. He was no longer a ghost, no longer able to hide behind fake names and empty promises. Justice had caught up with him. Linda's story serves as a haunting reminder that even the most charming facades can mask dangerous truths, and that sometimes the smallest detail, a photo, a name, can be the key to unraveling even the most carefully guarded lies.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more